Let's queer up politics. House Republicans' new bill could mean no pride flags at the Stonewall National Monument. Pride flags could not be flown at any facilities operated by the Interior Department or EPA, including the 424 sites owned by the National Park Service. Under a spending bill by House Republicans that is set for a committee vote on Wednesday, the bill, which also calls for deep spending cuts for the agencies, would only allow official flags, including U.S. flags, POW MIA flags, and those that represent a state, tribe, or agency. The measure cleared a subcommittee on voice vote last week and now heads to a full House Appropriations Committee. While the rider does not specifically mention pride flags, Maine Representative Chellie Pingree, the top Democrat on the House Interior and Environment Appropriations Subcommittee, said, quote, "It's clear that the intent of this language is to halt the celebration for LGBTQ Americans," end quote. If approved by the full Congress, the bill could force Stonewall National Monument, a National Park Service site in New York dedicated to telling the story of the gay rights movement, to take down its pride flags. The bill is just the latest in a string of attacks on the pride flag and a Republican focus on LGBTQ issues in Congress and state houses across the country this year. Well, it's just an indication that Forrest Gump was right. Stupid is as stupid does. This makes absolutely no sense. None. First, it doesn't make any sense because there's no chance of this passing Congress. No chance at all. With the majority in the Senate, there's no possibility that this legislation would pass. It can only potentially pass by perhaps a few votes in the House, and probably not even that. So what they're doing is they're grandstanding for their conservative base. They literally have a hard-on for the gay people. Literally, that's what we're watching. There's no chance, and it's an indication of the radical craziness of the radical conservative and the radical evangelicals against LGBT. And I, from now until next November, I'm going to call this ridiculousness and stupidness out at every turn.
Because it is stupid and ridiculous. You know, and how many times do I tell you folks that we don't own the rainbow, right? Okay, well, now we own the rainbow. It's our official flag. Like, how is it that we could not flag this, raise this? This is incredible. And, you know, these flags have also been vandalized a couple of times. We did a couple of stories on that recently, you know, and then they say it's tax cuts or it's less money spending. Please, this is ridiculous, and I agree with Al 100% there.
You know, I disagree with you on one point. I think this will possibly clear the House because the amendment will probably make it onto a greater bill that they will vote out. It won't clear the Senate. It won't clear the joint committee, but I wouldn't be surprised if it passed the House. They've passed a whole bunch of hateful amendments towards women's health and everything else this last couple of weeks to sort of satisfy the base who will hold them accountable next November. They tried this in Florida this session. By the way, they tried to, it was basically the same language. It doesn't call out pride flags, but it basically says that it did. It was pulled by the Republican supermajority because their legal counsel said this is unconstitutional. The Republican legal counsel, whose job it is to find a way to thread that needle and get things like this passed, even they said, no, this isn't constitutional. But it does provide a window to, just because we can sit here safe and say, no, this isn't going to happen, it would never pass the Senate. They're broadcasting what they'll do when they have all three branches of the government. They're broadcasting it. When someone tells you who they are, believe them.
Yeah. Right. They're testing the market. They're throwing the idea out there. They're seeing how far they can push it. And then they're measuring what blowback they get and at what point. So it's just all part of a test.
And it's like the quote from Mean Girls, why are you so obsessed with us? You know, that's the first thing that I always think about. And, you know, shame on Republicans and conservatives for, you know, portraying this hatred towards the LGBTQ+ community because they know one of us. You know, every single conservative out there knows someone who's a relative or a friend that's part of this LGBTQ+ community, and they're part of this hatred.
One last thought, of which we haven't yet commented on. Even if for no other reason, they can't pass this legislation, and this shouldn't pass, because the National Monument and Stonewall National Monument elevates that monument for our community and the nation as a whole in recognition to what the Stonewall National Monument represents to our community. To say that you cannot fly a rainbow flag at this national monument literally is just, it's beyond sad.
Mm-hmm.
We are Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only live daily LGBTQ+ evening news show, brought to you from Happening Out Television Network. We operate in the same model of PBS and NPR, but for the LGBTQ+ community. We educate, inform, and entertain by supporting the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ+ community, with more than 100,000 a week watching us on Roku, Apple Television, and other channels. To keep the story going, we accept donations with 100% transparency. Stay updated and live authentically with Queer News Tonight.